next fly that I'd like to show you is what I call the Emerger, CDC Emerger. For this, we're going to be using a 101 hook, which has the ring eye. And we're going to have a little bit of a trailing shuck here out of Zelon. We're going to have a biot body. And then we have some legs here out of poly yarn. Or if you want to use the substitute, you can use black Zelon. And then we have a wing out of CDC. Let me show you how I do this one. So we're going to grab a hook here. And we put it in there. And we'll attach our thread. And as we put on our thread, we want it to be up in the thorax area. And then we're going to grab some Zelon. And we'll cut a little hunk of this off of here. And we'll separate some of the fibers out. And just kind of twist it so it kind of hangs together a little bit. And I'll even up one end of it. So I have a nice tie-in area. And then I'll just wrap back. And the reason we start tying it in the thorax area, as we wrap back, now I have a nice smooth underbody for when I bring over my biot. And then we'll trim the Zelon to just about the length of the hook shank or a little bit shorter. Now instead of leaving it just that blunt cutoff area, making it look so artificial, I just like to come in, kind of taper it a little bit. This makes it look a little bit more like the natural. Now with our thread back here, we're ready to tie in our body, and for that, this one we'll be using a goose biot. And for this, what I'm going to be using is a Canadian goose biot, and this is the natural gray color. So we'll peel one off. And just like before on the turkey, when you peel it off, I'm going to look at it. I have a notch right here, which is to my left. Now if I tie it in and wrap it forward, I'm going to have that nice smooth body, which is what I want. Or if I was to turn it over, that notch is to my right. Now that fuzzy edge is on my left side, and then when I wrap that forward, then I'm going to get that little ostrich ribbing to it. Now before I tie in this goose biot, I want to moisten it. Then I'll just tie it in tip first. Wrap our thread forward. Then we're going to attach our hackle pliers. The reason I like to use a Canadian goose biot is just because of the color that you get from it. Especially for the lake chironomids, this is just the perfect color. You have that nice black kind of graduated ribbing here with the light gray in between. I mean, that just looks buggy to me. Tie that off. Then we'll trim off that excess. Put a little thread base down here. Now we're going to tie in some eyes, or legs. For that we're going to be using some poly yarn. So we'll just take some black poly, and we'll just pull out a few fibers here. Kind of straighten it out before we tie it in. Then you put one hunk of it out over the eye, wrap back. I'm going to trim off your excess. Then I take my thread back to where we tied off the biot. And now we're ready to tie in our wing, which will be CDC. So we're going to take a couple feathers here. Just like so. Even up the tips. Then you just take one loose wrap over the top of it. Pull your CDC through just till you get to the tip of it right here. Then you cinch down on your thread and then wrap back a little bit. That's just a lot easier doing it that way than trying to get all the tips together and then just tying those in. Now, since this is a fairly large fly, you have a couple options here for your thorax. You can use your thread like what I'm doing here now, or you can put a little bit of dubbing in there. Because more times than not, you're going to be fishing these things a lot smaller than what you're seeing right now. And it just helps to minimize the amount of materials that you put on the hook. So a thread thorax is a lot easier to use. Now we're going to separate this poly yarn into two groups. And we pull one along the side away from you and tie it down. Do it on the sides towards you and tie it down. Now we have two groups of legs sticking out here. Now we're going to bring this CDC over for our wing. What I do is just kind of stroke it all up, straight up and down, so all the fibers have about the same amount of tension on them. Pull it straight over fairly tight, just like a shell back on a nymph. Now since we have the stem of the feather in here, all we're going to do is push back. Let me say that one more time. What you're just going to do is push straight back. You don't want to try to kind of form a loop. You just want the natural tendencies of the feather to help you out. So as you push back, the feather just kind of envelopes out for you. And then you just pinch it alongside the hook shank. Tie it down. And we'll cut off the excess, just like so. Get that out of there. And then we'll just make a nice smooth head here. And we're ready to whip finish it off. Yep, just about pulled that off of there. Got to rebuild that head a little bit. Just like so. Well, then we take off our thread. Now we're going to take our legs. I just pull them straight down and kind of angle them back towards the hook point. And that's right where I trim them at. Just to the length of the hook point. And kind of push them back up in there a little bit. Now if you have a scraggler or two of CDC, just trim that off. And there you have it. That's what I like to call the midge emerger. And then for that loop wing, when you look at the underside of it, it just shows the wing unfolding. I mean, it just looks so much like the natural. Fishes real well too.